Paula Pant, the host of the Afford Anything podcast, likes to answer questions her listeners send in. This is a special episode where she also has Joe Salsihai from the Stacking Benjamins show join in the fun.
Hi, Paula. My name is Kelly, and I live in a suburb of Denver, Colorado. And being that it's tax season, I have a question about what would you advise me to do with my tax return money. I should be receiving a return of about $2,500 this year, and I'm wondering if I should allocate that towards my $30,000 student loan debt, which has a 6.8% interest rate. I also have a Roth IRA that I contribute to and try to max out every year. But I also am thinking, I bought a house about a year ago, and maybe I should start making some improvements to that and buy a new washer dryer, make renovations. So I'm having a hard time deciding. My emergency savings is pretty well set, but I am not the best monthly saver, so it would be hard for me to save up for renovations and improvements. So I'm wondering if I should allocate this lump sum to this. I really want to pay down my debt, but I also want to save for the future at the same time. So I'm kind of having a hard time figuring out what to do. So should I split it up? Should I allocate some money to the Roth and some money towards appliances, or should I throw the lump sum at one thing to just knock it out? Thanks so much, Paula, and I hope to hear from you soon.
So what should Kelly do?
Oh, thanks. Just throw it right to me.
I know, right? You know what it is? I think I'm used to this interview style. So when I've got you on the show, I'm like, my brain is like, I must be doing an interview. Okay. Ask question. Go.
Well, I know that you'll be answering part of this too, but you know what I think? Mm-hmm. I think there's this thing. Let's explain how I'm going to answer the question first, because I think that's what most people really want to know, right? Yeah. Kind of what we're thinking.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people are in the same spot. So there's this thing, Paula, that I call the risk premium. I didn't come up with that, believe it or not, but it's the risk premium. And that is, if I take the money and I do something else with it, am I getting a high enough rate of return that it makes sense? So in other words, if I take money out and let's say that she puts that money in the Roth IRA, right? The $2,500 that she has. Mm-hmm. If she puts that in the Roth IRA, maybe, she's going to be conservative. We should look at an 8 or 9% rate of return. Long term, you could make a case for 10. But even then, if she's got student loans at 6.8%, mm-hmm. the risk premium between those two for me isn't high enough to invest the money. So she should definitely pay down the student loan or refinance the student loan to a lower rate if she's going to do something else. The house stuff, I understand what she's saying about not being the best monthly saver. I'm somebody who's definitely not a natural saver. So you know what I had to do?
What?
I had to go and find out a lot about automation, because automation has saved Joe's bacon. It's been so fantastic. And what I do, because if I get $5 in my hand, it is gone. So I always make sure the money's never in my hand. I have my wallet right here and I have no cash. And I make sure of that because even though I'm responsible with credit cards, for some reason, cash just goes through my fingers. So here's what I like. I like setting up, just like Kelly probably has a 401k at work, maybe. If she has that, set up the same thing with monthly savings into the house fund, maybe save a little bit there. If she wants to do it in a more playful way, she can use some of the cool apps that are out there like Digit or Tip Yourself. I like Tip Yourself whenever you do something good, like you work out on a day, you tip yourself $10, like you're tipping a waiter, and then money automatically moves from your checking account or whatever account you establish over to the Tip Yourself account, which is a little harder to get at. And that's your set up the house fund. So for the house, I think I would automate and I would put all of that money, that $2,500 toward the student loans.
Yeah, so I agree. I would not put the $2,500 towards the house either, because given that it's her primary residence and, it's not a rental property, she's not going to make a higher return on it by virtue of doing any type of improvement.
Right.
So any spending on your personal residence is something that I see as an expense, not an investment. And that's not to say that an expense is bad per se. It's just that if she's considering between two investments or an expense, my natural inclination is go for the investment.
Yeah, mine too.
She mentioned a washer and dryer. You can get at least for the time being, Kelly, you can get a used washer dryer on Craigslist for not that much money. And I actually really like Digit. I'll link to both Digit and Tip Yourself in the show notes. But I really like that one because that also automates savings. It just pulls a tiny, tiny amount of money from your checking account, like $3 here, $4 there, And over time, it adds up into hundreds or even thousands. I actually just checked my digit balance the other day, and it was like 260 something. And that's after.
And it was totally painless, I'll bet.
I literally didn't notice because, I mean, when the money is automatically flowing out of your account in $2 increments over time, I mean, I just don't notice that.
That's so cool.
So,
yeah, there's another thing that I wanted to say about this too, Paul, if you don't mind, which is that when people have $2,500 as a tax refund, they think of it as a windfall. A windfall is when grandma dies. Well, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm saying if she gives you some money, that did sound awful, didn't it? It sounded very mercenary. I love you, grandma. But grandma passes away. She leaves you some money. That's a windfall. You didn't expect it. You didn't know grandma was going to die. All of a sudden, you had this money you didn't know you were going to have. A $2,500 tax refund is your money that the government's been hanging on to for the last 12 months. It's not a windfall. So make sure you don't treat it like, I got $2,500. I'm going to the Sizzler.
To the Sizzler? Is that where you go when you go high dollar, like bling bling?
Next question, Paula.
Man, I got to take a trip out to Texarkana to visit you.
We have the most fun in Texarkana.
The other thing, actually, Joe, I wanted to ask you a question, though. So I totally agree with you about the risk premium. The 6.8% on a student loan versus, say, if you're going to get 8% over the long term in an investment, the difference between those two is so small that the certainty of paying off a 6.8% loan as compared to the risk or volatility of possibly getting a long-term 8% annualized average. I mean, making X on a treasury bond is not the same as making X on a share of Facebook stock. That's where that
can't justify it.
Exactly. That's totally where that risk premium comes in. And that happens not just in stocks, but also in rental properties. People are like, oh, this rental property has a much, much higher cap rate. And I'm like, yeah, but what is that relative to the risk of that neighborhood? Because a Class A property and a Class D property are like hashtag not the same thing. So I'm a big fan of thinking about the risk premium. So thank you for bringing that up. My question to you, Joe, is how would you, given that she's going to also, in addition to the return, she's also going to get a tax benefit from putting money into a Roth IRA, how would you bake that in?
Well, she doesn't get a benefit today. I mean, she's going to get a benefit down the road. So I think I completely discredit the tax benefit.
Really? But it's a huge benefit. Like all dividends and capital gains for the rest of her life are tax exempt. And given her voice, she sounds young. Kelly, you sound young.
That's good. No, you know what? We can do that homework too, and we can talk about how that it's extra math that I think when people start to get in the weeds with, well, I got this piece of math, I got that piece of math, we avoid the most important thing, which is getting something done. And even after the tax consequence of getting that done, there is something, I guess, there, Paula. And the thing that I don't know is how close is Kelly to reaching her long-term goal that she's putting money away for in the Roth. If she's, desperately far behind on that, and she's, the student loans are going to be handled in a reasonable amount of time just based on the monthly payment she's making, okay, then maybe I'll say, all right, you're so far behind, Kelly, on your retirement goal that you should pop that money in the Roth. But I think it's less about the tax strategy for me than it is about what are you hoping to achieve and how are you on that trajectory.
Yeah, okay, I'll second that. I'll vouch for that.
Woo!
Because that is something that I say on the show quite a bit is don't make investment decisions based on taxes. Make the investment decision, or more broadly, make the financial decision that you're going to make, and then figure out how to tax optimize it. So don't let the tail wag the dog.
Oh, and you totally see that, right? You see people say, well, I only save in my 401k. Well, why do you do that if you're going to retire at 50 years old? It doesn't make sense. They said, well, it's the best tax shelter that I have available. Yeah, but you're going to have a heck of a time getting your money at age 50. You're going to have to use these IRS Rule 72T or the SEPP rules. I mean, it's going to be messy.
Yeah, you know me.
To get your money. SEPP, yeah, you know me. Is that what you're just doing?
That comes up every time you and I talk, Joe.
Yeah. So I don't want to have to use any of that stuff. You're right. And in that case, you and I both see it all the time. Taxes wagging the dog. That's good.
Yeah. I hear that too I get a lot of questions from people who are like, what's the way that questions are framed. Sorry, Kelly, we're totally not talking about your question anymore, but just more generally, the way that a lot of questions that I get are framed is like, here's option A, here's option B, here's option C. Which of these would give me the best tax outcome? And I'm like, well, don't you want to know the best overall outcome?
Right. It's funny. There was a guy in Detroit when I was on television there for a number of years. He had a great radio show in town. And I remember him telling his listeners that the tax bill you want is Bill Gates' tax bill.
Yeah.
We all want Bill Gates' tax bill because that means we have oodles of money. So don't worry about taxes first. Worry about getting Bill Gates money.
Yeah, exactly. If you're paying a boatload in taxes, you're doing something right, you know?
Right.
Hey, did you enjoy this excerpt from the Afford Anything podcast? Then click to download our free ebook, Escape. You'll be taken to a page where you can enter your email for immediate access to everything you need to know about escaping the 9-to-5 grind to live life on your terms. And you can also subscribe with one simple click to get alerted when new videos are uploaded.